Welcome to Headphone News International Edition for Saturday, November 23rd, 2024.
Germany's new finance minister discusses debt brake reform. On November 22, 2024, Jürg Kukies, Germany's new finance minister, spoke about the need for a careful approach to reforming the country's debt brake. This fiscal rule restricts Germany's public deficit to 0.35% of gross domestic product. Kukies highlighted the importance of reaching political consensus on any changes. The recent collapse of the coalition government has increased the urgency for discussions on public spending. Kukies aims to ensure budget discipline during good times while allowing for flexibility during economic crises. He also plans to request more time for Germany to submit its spending plans under the new European Union debt rules.
Record bond sales in Eurozone for 2025. In 2025, Eurozone governments are set to issue a record 1.26 trillion euros in government bonds, which is approximately 1.34 trillion US dollars. Investors will need to absorb over 660 billion euros of these bonds, as the European Central Bank will not be purchasing bonds in the market anymore. This shift may lead to higher borrowing costs for countries like Germany and France. Analysts are confident that the market can manage the supply, but concerns remain about increased risks for investors. The bond market will also face challenges due to ongoing political and economic uncertainty in the region.
Texas governor orders divestment from China investments. On November 21, 2024, Texas Governor Greg Abbott announced that state agencies must stop investing in China. The directive requires these agencies to sell any existing investments in China as soon as possible. Abbott highlights financial and security concerns arising from increasing tensions between the United States and China. This decision reflects growing worries among U.S. lawmakers about foreign investments from countries viewed as threats. The move could significantly affect Texas businesses that maintain connections with China.
Adani Group faces legal challenges and funding issues. The Adani Group, a major company in India, is facing serious challenges after the founder, Gautam Adani, was indicted in the U.S. over alleged bribery. This indictment involves claims of a $265 million bribery scheme to secure contracts in India's renewable energy sector. Following this news, the value of bonds issued by the Adani Group has dropped significantly, leading to a loss of about $23 billion in market value. Analysts caution that these developments could severely restrict the group's access to funding and decrease international investment in India's renewable energy projects. In a related move, Kenya has canceled contracts worth nearly $2 billion that were expected to benefit the Adani Group. This situation raises concerns about the future of the Adani Group and its ambitious plans in the renewable energy sector.
Trump considers Warsh for Treasury Secretary. Donald Trump is considering Kevin Warsh for the role of Treasury Secretary. This conversation took place at Trump's Mar-a-Lago retreat in Florida. Warsh could also be nominated later as chairman of the Federal Reserve. Trump is looking at other candidates for these positions, including Scott Bessent, Mark Rowan, Bill Hagerty, and Robert Lighthizer. These appointments could have a significant impact on U.S. economic policy and market stability.
Market update. Political changes and inflation concerns. World markets are experiencing uncertainty as potential policies from Trump's administration come into focus. The war in Ukraine has now reached 1,000 days, raising concerns among investors. With Thanksgiving approaching in the U.S., attention turns to consumer spending during the holiday shopping season. Bitcoin is nearing $100,000, reflecting a significant rise, while the U.S. dollar continues to strengthen. Clean energy investments have dropped by 14%. The Mexican peso has fallen over 4%, and European stocks are down about 3%. Next week, the group of 7 foreign ministers will meet to discuss the situation in Ukraine. Inflation remains a major concern in the U.S., Japan, and Europe, impacting consumer behavior. Target has warned of lower holiday sales due to inflation pressures. Overall, political changes and economic factors will influence market trends in the coming weeks.
JPMorgan reports on Adani Group and Indian banks. On November 22, 2024, JPMorgan released a report about Indian banks and their ties to the Adani Group. The report states that the bank's loan exposure to the Adani Group is manageable, despite serious bribery allegations against founder Gautam Adani. U.S. prosecutors have accused Adani and others of paying around $265 million in bribes for contracts, including a major solar power project in India. The Adani Group denies these allegations and plans to seek legal recourse. Following the indictment, shares of Indian state-owned banks dropped by 2.7% due to concerns about their exposure to the Adani Group. However, JPMorgan reassured that the risk to banks is minimal, as their exposure is only about 0.3% of total loans. The report also highlighted that exposure to Adani Green, which is central to the allegations, is very small. While there is no significant risk to the banking system, some banks may limit new funding and increase loan prices in the future.
UniCredit CEO rules out headquarters move to Germany. On November 22, 2024, Andrea Orsul, CEO of UniCredit, announced that the bank will not move its headquarters from Milan, Italy, to Germany if it acquires Commerzbank. Speaking at the JPMorgan European Financials Conference in London, Orsul addressed concerns from investors, emphasizing that UniCredit is committed to its base in Milan. Recently, UniCredit became the largest investor in Commerzbank with a nearly 21% stake, contingent upon supervisory approval. Orsul stated that any potential acquisition would be delayed until after the national elections in Germany. He reassured stakeholders that UniCredit aims to keep its net profit above €9 billion in the coming years.
Euro declines as Bitcoin approaches 100,000 amid economic woes. The euro has fallen to 1.033 against the US dollar, getting close to parity. This drop stems from ongoing economic challenges in Europe, including trade tensions and rising energy prices. The Eurozone has experienced a 4% decline in currency value this month, the largest loss since April 2022. In contrast, Bitcoin is nearing the milestone of $100,000, recently valued at $99,380. This surge is fueled by optimism for a more favorable regulatory environment under the incoming Trump administration. Concerns about potential trade wars and high energy costs continue to weigh on the Eurozone economy.
Ontario secures funding for school food program. Ontario has reached an agreement with the federal government for $108.5 million in funding to support a school food program. This funding will provide 9.8 million meals each year to an additional 160,000 children. The announcement was made in Brampton, Ontario, by Prime Minister Trudeau and Minister Sudds. In the first year, $15.76 million will go to Ontario's student nutrition program, while $2.78 million will support the First Nations student nutrition program. This initiative is part of a broader plan to invest $1 billion over 5 years in a national school food program aimed at helping more children across Canada.
Trump's energy pick advocates for fossil fuels. Chris Wright, chosen by Donald Trump to head the U.S. Department of Energy, argues that fossil fuels are crucial for fighting poverty. He claims that climate change is a distant concern compared to the immediate need for energy access. In his report, Bettering Human Lives, Wright states that the energy transition has not yet started and highlights the role of hydrocarbons in development. Many experts challenge his views, insisting that climate change is an urgent issue needing prompt action. Wright's perspective could significantly shape U.S. energy policy, possibly leading to increased fossil fuel production and diminished efforts to tackle climate change.
Trump's new panel to cut federal regulations. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy will lead a new initiative called the Department of Government Efficiency under President-elect Donald Trump. This panel aims to review and potentially eliminate numerous federal regulations that they consider overly strict and unnecessary. The target for completing this work is July 4, 2026, coinciding with the 250th anniversary of the United States. Experts caution that changing these regulations could be complicated and may face legal challenges. The results of this initiative could significantly impact areas such as healthcare, the environment, and workers' rights.
Same-sex civil unions rise in Italy amid conservative policies. In 2023, Italy saw a significant rise in same-sex civil unions, with 3,019 unions registered, marking a 7.3% increase from the previous year. This growth follows the legalization of same-sex civil unions in 2016. However, the current conservative government, led by Prime Minister Meloni, has implemented policies that restrict LGBTQ rights. These include a ban on surrogacy for same-sex couples and limits on registering both parents for children of same-sex couples. Critics claim these actions undermine the progress made in LGBTQ rights in Italy.
Mexican president addresses trade concerns. On November 22, 2024, President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico stated in a press conference in Mexico City that Chinese products do not enter the United States and Canada through Mexico. She highlighted the need to correct misconceptions about trade routes. The Mexican government plans to clarify these issues in upcoming trade meetings with Canadian officials and U.S. President-elect Trump. This statement seeks to ease concerns about trade practices and protect Mexico's trade reputation. Providing accurate information about trade dynamics is crucial for maintaining strong economic relations in North America.
Economic warnings from Bundesbank President. On November 22, 2024, Bundesbank President Joachim Nagel warned in Frankfurt, Germany, that proposed tariffs by U.S. President-elect Donald Trump could significantly harm economic growth and increase inflation in both Europe and the United States. He highlighted concerns that these tariffs might trigger new trade conflicts and lead to major losses in gross domestic product, or GDP. Nagel called on European Union leaders to focus on collective interests and collaborate on economic integration to protect their economies. He suggested creating a banking union and a capital markets union to better assist businesses in need of investment.
Impact of Trump's economic policies on U.S. stocks. U.S. stocks have seen significant growth in 2024, with the S&P 500 index up over 24%. Investors expect that the economic plans of President-elect Trump, which include tax cuts and deregulation, will further boost the U.S. market. The S&P 500 currently hold a high premium compared to stocks from more than 40 other countries. Strong earnings from technology companies, particularly NVIDIA, have fueled this growth. Analysts predict that U.S. corporate earnings will rise by 9.9% in 2024 and 14.2% in 2025. The U.S. economy is projected to grow by 2.8% in 2024, surpassing many global economies. After the November 5th election, U.S. equity funds attracted over $80 billion, while European funds experienced outflows. Concerns about potential trade wars and inflation from proposed tariffs persist, which could affect both U.S. and global markets.
Putin warns the West amid rising tensions. On November 22, 2024, Russian President Vladimir Putin issued a strong warning to Western nations after launching a new hypersonic missile called Warsh at Ukraine. This missile launch was a direct response to Ukrainian military actions that involved missiles from the U.S. and Britain. Putin declared that Russia has the right to target military facilities in the U.S. and Britain if their support for Ukraine continues. He described the ongoing conflict as escalating toward a global situation, but he did not mention nuclear options. The Kremlin stated that Russia will respond to actions from Western countries seen as reckless. The situation remains tense as the West continues to support Ukraine, raising concerns about further military escalation. The conflict between Russia and Ukraine, which began in 2014, continues to attract attention from major world powers.
Honeywell sells PPE business for $1.33 billion. Honeywell has announced the sale of its personal protective equipment business to Protective Industrial Products for about $1.33 billion. This move is part of Honeywell's strategy to streamline operations and concentrate on key areas like automation and energy. The decision comes after Elliott Investment Management acquired a stake of over $5 billion in Honeywell and pushed for structural changes within the company. The deal is expected to close in the first half of 2025. Protective Industrial Products specializes in manufacturing protective gear and is owned by Odyssey Investment Partners.
U.S. sanctions impact Russian energy payments. On November 21, 2024, the United States announced new sanctions against Gazprombank, a key Russian financial institution. These sanctions are likely to stop European customers from paying for Russian gas. The measures also target around 50 other Russian banks and the Bank of Russia system for transfer of financial messages. Analysts from Sinara Investment Bank warn that payments through Gazprombank may become impossible by the end of 2024. The sanctions include a wind-down period for transactions involving Gazprombank until December 20, 2024, and for the Sakhalin-2 oil and gas project until June 28, 2025. The Kremlin has condemned these actions as attempts to disrupt Russian gas exports, but remains optimistic about finding a solution. Gazprombank claims that the sanctions will not impact its banking operations, although no details on alternative payment methods have been provided. In March 2022, Russia required countries labeled as hostile to pay for gas supplies in a scheme that involved converting hard currency into Russian rubles. Buyers were instructed to open 2 accounts at Gazprombank, one in rubles and one in foreign currency. The new sanctions complicate financial transactions with Russian counterparts, which may lead to an increase in the involvement of Chinese companies in Russia's foreign trade. Analysts suggest that these developments could strengthen economic ties between Russia and China.
Charges filed against former Quebec Pension Fund employees. 3 former employees of the Quebec Deposit and Investment Fund face serious charges related to an alleged bribery scheme involving Indian government officials. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Brooklyn, New York, announced that these individuals are accused of attempting to pay over $250 million in bribes to secure contracts worth billions with a solar energy company in India. The charges include conspiracy to violate the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which prohibits U.S. companies from bribing foreign officials to gain business. The accused also allegedly tried to obstruct a grand jury investigation by deleting electronic materials and providing false information to authorities. The Quebec Deposit and Investment Fund has acknowledged the charges against the former employees, who were fired in 2023, and stated that it is cooperating with U.S. authorities. Gautam Adani, a well-known Indian billionaire with close ties to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, is mentioned in the allegations, although his business group denies any wrongdoing. This case raises significant concerns about ethics in international business and may affect investor confidence.
Federal Reserve survey highlights economic concerns. A recent survey from the Federal Reserve shows a shift in concerns among financial professionals about the U.S. economy. Conducted from August to October 2024, the survey indicates that worries about inflation have decreased, while rising U.S. debt and potential global trade risks have become more significant. Experts now see U.S. fiscal debt sustainability as the top concern, suggesting that increased Treasury issuance could limit private investment and hinder responses during economic downturns. The survey results were released on November 22, 2024, after President-elect Trump won the election on November 5, 2024. The findings highlight growing concerns about a weakening economy and trade tensions, with some respondents noting that tariff barriers could lead to retaliatory actions, disrupting global trade and increasing inflationary pressures. Additionally, the survey reflects changes in bond market behavior, with yields on 10-year Treasury notes rising sharply despite recent cuts to the Federal Reserve's benchmark lending rate. Overall, the report underscores a financial system that remains resilient but faces notable pressures, including high asset values and rising delinquency rates on certain loans. These insights provide a crucial perspective on the economic challenges that may influence future discussions on fiscal policy and international trade.
Chinese hackers target U.S. critical infrastructure. Chinese hackers are reportedly preparing for potential conflict with the United States by infiltrating critical infrastructure networks. A top official from U.S. Cyber Command stated that these cyber operations aim to disrupt essential services. Concerns have risen after a significant cyber espionage operation known as Salt Typhoon targeted U.S. telecommunications companies. This operation involves stealing sensitive data and compromising communications of key officials before the recent presidential election. The FBI and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency are providing support to potential targets of these cyber threats. U.S. officials stress the importance of strong defenses against these ongoing cyber operations.
Ontario expands cancer coverage for firefighters. On November 22, 2024, the Ontario government announced plans to expand presumptive coverage for firefighters diagnosed with cancer. Premier Doug Ford shared this news at the Hamilton Fire Department in Ontario, Canada. The proposed legislation aims to cut the service requirement for accessing benefits for primary site kidney cancer from 20 years to 10 years. It also seeks to eliminate the age limit for colorectal cancer coverage. Firefighters face a higher risk of cancer due to exposure to harmful substances on the job. This initiative is designed to enhance support for those who protect communities and confront serious health risks.
Matt Gaetz withdraws from Congress and DOJ nomination. On November 22, 2024, former U.S. Representative Matt Gaetz announced he will not return to Congress next year. This decision comes after he withdrew from consideration for the role of Attorney General under President-elect Donald Trump. Gaetz is facing serious allegations of drug use and sexual misconduct involving an underage girl. After resigning from Congress to pursue the nomination, he decided not to reclaim his seat. His resignation tightens the Republican majority in the House, which now holds 218 seats compared to the Democrats' 214. The Florida Department of State confirmed that Gaetz's seat will remain vacant until a special election on April 1, 2025. Following Gaetz's withdrawal, Trump nominated Pam Bondi, a former Florida Attorney General, to replace him. This situation raises significant questions about candidate scrutiny and the future of the Republican Party.
Federal Reserve announces policy framework review. On November 22, 2024, the U.S. Federal Reserve announced plans for a review of its monetary policy framework. A conference is set for May 15 and 16, 2025, to gather public feedback and insights from various stakeholders. Chair Jerome Powell noted that the review will not focus on the current 2% inflation target. The last framework review occurred in 2019 and resulted in significant changes in 2020 that prioritize employment goals. With rising inflation and interest rates, important questions arise about the future direction of monetary policy. The results of this review could significantly influence interest rates and overall economic conditions in the United States.
Trump meets Loeffler for Agriculture Secretary discussion. On November 22, 2024, President-elect Donald Trump is set to meet with former Senator Kelly Loeffler in Palm Beach, Florida. The discussion will center on Loeffler's possible appointment as Agriculture Secretary in the upcoming administration. If chosen, she would oversee the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which employs around 100,000 people and manages various programs related to farming and nutrition. Loeffler has prior experience in the Senate and served as a co-chair of Trump's inaugural committee. Her potential appointment could have a significant impact on agricultural policies and trade agreements in the United States.
Samsung ordered to pay $118 million for patent infringement. A jury in Marshall, Texas, has ordered Samsung Electronics to pay $118 million to Netlist, a computer memory company, after finding that Samsung infringed on Netlist's patents related to memory technology. This decision, announced on November 22, 2024, determined that Samsung's infringement was willful, which could lead to a judge increasing the damages by up to 3 times. This ruling follows a previous $303 million verdict against Samsung in a related case, and a separate $445 million judgment against Micron Technology in May 2024. Netlist claims that Samsung used its patented technology in memory modules designed for cloud computing servers and other data-intensive applications. These innovations are said to improve the power efficiency of memory modules, allowing users to process large amounts of data more effectively. Samsung denies the allegations, stating that its technology works differently and that the patents are invalid. Additionally, Samsung has filed a separate lawsuit in Delaware claiming that Netlist did not offer fair licensing agreements for technology required to meet international standards. This case highlights ongoing tensions in the tech industry regarding intellectual property rights and the significant financial stakes involved in patent litigation.
Northvolt files for bankruptcy, impacting Europe's EV battery industry. Northvolt, a leading battery manufacturer based in Sweden, filed for bankruptcy protection in the United States on November 22, 2024. This financial collapse marks a major setback for Europe's efforts to build a competitive electric vehicle battery industry. Northvolt's difficulties arose from challenges in securing funding and the loss of a significant contract worth €2 billion, or about $2.1 billion from BMW earlier this year. Since its founding in 2016, the company has raised over $10 billion, but has struggled to meet production targets and deliver high-quality batteries. This bankruptcy raises serious concerns about the future of the battery industry in Europe, which aims to compete with Chinese manufacturers that currently dominate the market, controlling around 85% of global battery cell production. Experts emphasize the need for Europe to rethink its support for domestic battery production to avoid falling behind in this vital sector. The European Investment Bank has stated its commitment to closely monitor developments, as Northvolt owes the bank approximately €313 million, roughly $330 million. The Swedish government has indicated it does not plan to invest in Northvolt, leaving the company's future uncertain. Outgoing CEO Peter Carlson has expressed worries that Europe may regret stepping back from its ambitions to compete with China in the battery market in the long run.
Burlington man charged with voyeurism at mall. A 58-year-old man, Kenneth Adam, has been charged with voyeurism in Burlington, Ontario, Canada. The charges are related to an incident on October 28, 2024, when he allegedly filmed young girls at Mapleview Mall without their knowledge. The Halton Regional Police Service responded after receiving reports from the public. Adam faces 2 counts of voyeurism and 2 counts of criminal harassment. At the time, he worked as a private math tutor and special education assistant. Authorities believe there may be more victims and have released his photo to the public. This case highlights serious concerns about safety and privacy in public spaces.
Seniors excluded from Canadian Inflation Relief Program. The Canadian government has announced a new program offering $250 checks to working Canadians earning $150,000 or less in 2023. Prime Minister Trudeau stated that these checks aim to assist many individuals dealing with inflation. However, many seniors feel left out of this relief effort. Residents like Neil from Edmonton and Elizabeth from Woodstock, Ontario, have voiced concerns about discrimination against older citizens. The program is projected to cost about $4.68 billion Canadian dollars, roughly $3.43 billion US dollars. Critics, including advocacy groups and opposition parties, are urging for a more inclusive approach to support all Canadians, especially those on fixed incomes.
That is all the news for today. Thank you for listening to today's headphone news. News summary brought to you by AI.